Hello, all potential future linguists. This video is for those of you who couldn't make it to the live stream of the Virtual Spring Open House. My name is Justin Case, that's my real name, not just my linguistics name, and I'm a doctoral candidate here at the University of Ottawa in the Department of Linguistics. In this video, I'm going to briefly tell you about what it's like to study linguistics at the University of Ottawa. Here at the bottom of the first slide, if you have any questions, I've given you Stephen Levy's email, and he is happy to answer any questions you might have regarding the undergraduate programs in linguistics at the University of Ottawa in English or in French. So these rules do not apply. What I'm going to present today includes the following. What is linguistics? What do linguists actually do? We don't learn this at high school, and if you're like me, you're coming into this not really knowing what linguistics is about, so I'll start by talking about that. Then I'm going to give you a brief tour of the linguistics department at the University of Ottawa, talk to you about the undergraduate programs that the University of Ottawa offers. Then we'll talk very briefly about what you can do with a degree in linguistics. So what do linguists actually do? Well, the easy answer is that linguists partake in the scientific study of human language in all of its facets. So this might mean that we contribute to the theory of what language is like. How can we predict the way that languages might act? For instance, if a language has X, then it will have Y. So we ask these questions by using typically we use the traditional trifecta. Syntax feeding phonology, feeding semantics. On the other hand, some linguists don't want to study the theoretical implications of language. They rather want to look at how language is actually used in the real world. So you might ask questions relating to how people process language, namely psycholinguistics, or how language is used in actual everyday life in different cultures, in mixing situations. That would be sociolinguistics. And typology is basically the study of patterns across unrelated languages. Some languages also partake in the description of understudied languages. You do have the option of describing languages here in this program, and it's actually what I do in my program, my doctoral program, and I'll talk to you about that briefly in a minute. Others might be interested in looking at how languages change or even converge over time. This is historical linguistics. Although we don't have the strongest department in historical linguistics, there are opportunities to study various aspects of historical linguistics at the University of Ottawa. We'll touch on these very shortly. The great thing is that you'll be able to explore each of these subdomains at uOttawa. You can study theoretical linguistics mixed with different applied linguistics and historical or descriptive linguistic activities over the course of your study here. So starting with the theoretical linguistics at uOttawa, you can study syntax, basically referring to the principled combination of words or smaller and bigger units. An example of a specialist who studies syntax in our department is our chair, Eric Mathieu. He studies, among other things, gender systems like the famous French gender distinction between masculine and feminine objects and entities in the world, things that can be counted and can't across different languages, how we pluralize, and his studies cover various Algonquian languages, including the local language Ojibwe, various dialects of Arabic, including other languages. Another specialist in our department is Dennis Ott, who studies basically what we pronounce and what we don't across different languages, as well as various movement patterns within sentences across different languages. These can vary vastly, and he contributes to the modern literature looking at German and perhaps the most interesting European language, Basque. Phonology, another theoretical discipline, can be studied at uOttawa, basically looking at sound systems of the world and how sounds combine in principled ways. Well, our in-house specialist in phonology is Kevin McMullen, who actually would provide you with a unique opportunity to look at cutting-edge computational modeling approaches to the world's sound systems. Semantics looks at word meaning and the meaning of combinations of words. An example of this would be my supervisor, Andres Saranova, who, among other things, studies the variation in the encoding of what's called evidentiality. Basically, certain languages have these cool morphemes or words that basically reflect whether something was directly observed or if you heard it from somebody else or infer it from evidence at hand, etc. And so he compares similar structures in Slavic languages of Europe with certain languages of the Brazilian Amazon for which he performs his own fieldwork. We'll talk about fieldwork in a minute. So beyond theoretical linguistics, we also have specialists that look at psycholinguistics. So for instance, Laura Sabourin looks at bilingualism in the brain, doing cutting-edge, state-of-the-art research using the labs that I'll talk about in a minute. So she primarily looks at English and French bilingualism, which, as you most likely know, Ottawa is the perfect place to study this type of bilingual interaction across languages. She also looks at second language acquisition as a specialist on basically how we learn languages that are not our mother tongues. On the other side of the coin, we have Professor Zaminer, who looks at acquiring your mother tongue, your first language. How do babies learn language? So she also runs a separate lab with state-of-the-art technology that is aimed at understanding how we learn our first language. Another type of non-theoretical linguistics that you can study at uOttawa is sociolinguistics, with our in-house celebrity, Shanna Popluk, who studies code switching, and particularly in bilingual environments. So we've already discussed the fact that Ottawa is a particularly interesting place and geographical region to study bilingualism, but she also looks at different varieties of language contact phenomena, including, for instance, Creole languages or Black Vernacular English. You can also study with Stephen Levy, who looks at basically dialects across the urban environment, as well as historical developments in English and French and other languages, particularly those that come into contact with each other. One final type of study that you can perform in linguistics at the University of Ottawa, although it's related to phonology, which looked at principled interactions of sounds within a given sound system, you can also study phonetics, which looks at the production and perception of human language, basically more technically by looking at the human body. So one specialist in this is Marc Brunel, who is doing perhaps some of the more interesting research on tonogenesis, which is just as cool as it sounds, basically looking for the origins of tonal distinctions in languages in Southeast Asia particularly, where, for instance, where in English we would have a distinction between beer and bear, have just a typical vowel distinction, you might have something like ba, and those would be two different words. So he looks at these in a more scientific lens to see how the body produces these and what this might tell us about where these distinctions come from. Last but certainly not least is another phonetics professor at the University of Ottawa, our newest faculty member, Susie Ann. Her work primarily focuses on the production of speech sounds. Using our cutting edge technology available to us in the department, using ultrasound imaging technology to better understand and with scientific precision the way that we produce certain sounds across languages.